Hey everyone!
Hola todos!
This is Jahaira.
And this is Stephanie, and welcome to Cuento Crimen podcast.
Y aquí on the Cuento Crimen podcast, we are a true crime podcast and we bring a new case every Wednesday.
Cada miércoles.
And these are cases that don't get much media attention, so chances are you haven't heard of some of these cases.
And we cover these cases in Spanglish.
Así que agarra a tu abuelita, tu abuelito, tu mamá, tu papá, a quien tú gustes, and come join us every Wednesday for a new true crime case. So this case takes us back to the year 2013. Colleen Ritzer tenía 24 años y ella era maestra de matemáticas in Danvers High School, which was located in Danvers, Massachusetts.
When reading about Colleen, everyone had nothing but nice things to say about her. They described her as someone who was joyful and optimistic. It sounds very so much like a teacher,
right.
You know? Which
it
is
takes
amazing.
A special person to be a teacher.
Yes, and I think that's amazing. So, like, she definitely fit that role, you know? Entonces, like, sus amigos y familia decían que ella era una maestra dedicada a su trabajo. She loved her job and she respected her students and her colleagues.
And she was also very much respected by her students. And I think that's probably because she was very nurturing to them. I feel like el respeto es algo que you earn. And I feel like she is a teacher that you always remember by what some of her students had to say. She always had extra time for her students. Ella siempre se quedaba después de escuela para ayudar a los que necesitaban extra support, or maybe like if a child had to redo a low test score, you know, something like that.
I think educators are amazing because it's like, at that point, you're not really getting paid for your time anymore.
Yeah.
And the fact that teachers stay after school to be helpful to students, that's amazing.
I never thought about that, like office hours and all that. Yeah.
So during this time, Colleen recently got a new student by the name Philip Chism. Y se dice que él era muy callado y tímido.
Yeah, it seemed like not a lot of kids knew who he was. I think he was just kind of known for being part of the basketball team. And it sounded like he was having a hard time connecting with like the whole school, like, what would you say, community? Porque él apenas se había mudado de Tennessee. And I feel like moving states in the middle of your teenage years, in the middle of a school year, it's a lot. Puede ser difícil.
100%. It's like when kids are having all these types of changes. I mean, this is like a big life change, right?
Yeah.
But also there's a lot going on like internally as well as a teenager. So like the combination of both could not sit well with some kids, you know? And also to add to that, Philip was going kind of through a tough situation because his parents were getting divorced, and it was described as a stressful divorce.
So I think, yeah, it's very safe to say que recientemente hubo muchos cambios en la vida de Philip. Y el 22 de octubre del 2013, Colleen le preguntó a Philip que si se podía quedar después de escuela for some extra support.
And Colleen was known for this. She always made sure to provide her students with extra support if they needed it, which, you know, like we were saying, it's really great of her. And so Philip didn't seem to mind, and so he stayed after school, and he was seen entering her classroom.
And also, like a quick little random fact, por suerte, la escuela had just recently upgraded their security y apenas habían puesto cámaras nuevas de surveillance, which later on comes in handy for this case, and y'all will see why.
Yeah, I think we cover a lot of cases where the cameras aren't working, so the fact that they are working in this case, it's really good to hear. But yeah, let's resume to the story. So Philip makes it to Colleen's class after school.
Y como a las 3 de la tarde, Colleen is seen exiting the classroom and she's walking down the aisle hacia el baño de las mujeres. Y unos minutos después, Philip se ve saliendo del salón también, y again, él también va caminando in the same direction as Colleen.
But the weird thing is that you can see him wearing a hood over his head, and as he is walking, he is putting on gloves.
And honestly, like, I'm sure most of y'all have seen this video if you guys are familiar with the case, but like it seemed like iba caminando con like a lot of determination.
Yeah, like he knew where he was going and for what.
Yeah, exactly. And like at first, I don't know, like if you see it, you're kind of just like, huh, that's a little strange. Like, he's just putting gloves on. Pero como dijimos, like, I don't know. It seemed a little suspicious. Like, it seemed like something more was happening. And while he's doing that, he is seen also going into the bathroom.
And about 11 minutes later or so, Philip is seen exiting the bathroom. But soon after, él regresa with a green recycling bin. Y también with like a new set of clothes. Tiene un nuevo cambio de ropa. And I think he was now seen wearing a fresh white tee.
Yeah, I think it's kind of hard to keep track of like what exactly he was wearing because there was multiple outfit changes. Mm-hmm. I think it's just strange that he's in the same bathroom as his teacher. Like, I don't know, don't you think that's kind of...
And then with gloves, with everything.
And yeah.
You know.
And then the change of clothes, it's also like, porque.
And now a bin.
And now a huge recycling bin. Like, we're talking about like the big dumpsters.
Yeah.
Bins that are outside. You know what I mean?
You went with that one?
Yeah.
Dang.
Like
it's
the big
not like
one.
the ones from the house?
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
It's like one of the house. But still, like, that's like one of the... It's huge.
Big, yeah.
Like, it's not a bin. It's like a... You know what I mean? Like...
Yeah.
I don't know. Y como a las 3:22 de la tarde, él fue visto arrastrando the recycling bin y él traía un black ski mask and he was seen leaving the building with the recycling bin.
This is really odd now, like the fact that he needed to put on a ski mask, you know? And so about a half an hour later, se ve que él regresa and once again, he is wearing a new pair of clothes and he is also seen visiting his own locker.
And it is unknown qué es lo que estaba haciendo en su locker, but after he's there for some time, he then goes into the bathroom again, but this time he's seen like walking right out. So he's probably in there for like a few seconds, like maybe just to check something, and then he came right back out.
Yeah, it definitely feels like maybe just to check something.
Yeah, like I feel like he was kind of giving the vibe like he was just peeping his head in type of thing. And that is all that the cameras caught.
Los papás de Colleen estuvieron esperando a su hija después del trabajo, but she never showed up.
And after Colleen failed to show up, she was then reported missing. And meanwhile, in Philip's house, también sus papás están preocupados y lo están esperando, pero Philip never shows up. And so after a few hours, they also report him missing.
And so police go to Danvers High School just to ask around because that was the last place that they were seen.
And police found some blood in the bathroom along with Colleen's purse and a recycling bin with blood inside.
And so this is a clear indicator que algo malo pasó.
As, you know, the investigation starts, obviously there's still no connection between Colleen and Philip, like right in the beginning, right? Like these are both missing cases that are simultaneously happening, pero la policía todavía hasn't connected it. And it wasn't until later that Phillips was found that night, como a la medianoche, and they found many items on him that raised a lot of questions.
Yeah, for starters, él tenía sangre en sus manos. And when they asked him where the blood came from, all he said was, and I quote, "It's the girls," end quote. Y después le preguntan que quién es the girl, and or where is this girl?
And he tells him again, and we quote, "She's buried in the woods," end quote. Police took this as a confession and they soon connected the dots, right? Like Colleen was a teacher at this high school. She's now missing, and Phillips was also missing the same day, and now they find him in suspicious circumstances. Entonces, they finally realized que la mujer de quien él hablaba era Colleen. And since the investigators know Colleen didn't make it home, you know, they kind of took it as an indicator que quién más podía ser.
And so around 3 a.m., la policía encontró el cuerpo de Colleen medio desnudo. Su cuerpo estaba cubierto con hojas, and it seemed like her body was sexually staged. And like that was like their first impression of the scene. But when they looked into what really happened, they discovered that Colleen was raped with an object.
Which is horrible, right? Like, me da escalofrío nomás de pensar. And along with that, también encontraron una nota que decía, and we quote, "I hate you all," end quote. Y siento que esto nos da a entender que hay más de lo que estamos viendo, like right now in this surface and in this crime scene.
And so at this point, Philip was clearly the suspect for this brutal murder. He was convicted for the murder, aggravated rape, and robbery of Colleen Ritzer.
Sé que a este punto muchos nos estamos preguntando, pero ¿por qué? Like, what will cause or what drove Philip to do this, right? And the motive, to be honest, was a bit unclear. Unos estudiantes que estaban allí ese día después de escuela dicen que Colleen estaba ayudando a Philip y que ella hizo un comentario sobre su mudanza de Massachusetts. Like, she kind of brought up Tennessee in that whole conversation, but that this kind of rubbed Philip the wrong way.
Students said that it was clear that he got upset and that Colleen did notice, so she changed the topic, which I feel like is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
You know, some subjects are touchy and like, I don't know, like it's hard to know, you know, what have bothered him, you know, from the beginning.
I feel like ella no lo quiso hacer por mal. Like, I'm just thinking of like myself and thinking of like being an educator y tienes un estudiante nuevo. You kind of want to start finding connections, right?
Yeah.
So maybe she was just like, okay, all I know about him es que él vino de Tennessee, so deja voy a hacer un comentario a ver si le saco plática.
Yes,
you know, like algo muy casual. And I think that her reaction, like realizing that he was upset y que ella cambió el tema, I feel like that's appropriate. I feel like that was okay. Like she noticed el cambio in Philip, entonces, you know, she dropped it. Like she didn't want to make him feel uncomfortable.
And so it seems that Philip's feelings were a lot deeper than just that, you know, just a little comment of his move. And even though él nunca dijo exactamente por qué, you know, he committed this crime, porque él mató a Colleen, he did confess that he slit her throat from behind.
Y también dijo que después de haberla matado, he went downtown to watch a movie. Y el ticket que él compró fue con la credit card de Colleen. And when I read that part, it kind of left me speechless because I think it shows that he had no remorse.
Yeah.
Like you commit this horrifying crime y después te vas a ver una película and just kind of relax.
Yeah, we've seen that, like, I don't think we've covered it here, but there's, like, some true crime cases where the person will go eat after. And so this is very similar to, like, how can you go about your day when you just did something so horrible? And so, yeah, I think there were signs que algo estaba mal pasando con Philip. Like, he had a lot of feelings, and with this big move and all these
life changes,
really. It must have been, like, a lot for him. Even though he's 14 years old, he is being tried as an adult because of how gruesome this case is.
Y el 26 de febrero del 2016, él fue sentenciado to life imprisonment. And he needs to serve at least 40 years in prison before considering parole.
And it's like really heart-crushing because he is so young, es muy joven. Y allí va a pasar los años más bonitos, like your prime time. It is what it is. He committed a crime. He needs to serve his time.
Like, le quitó la vida a Colleen. You know, he left a family to grieve the loss of their child. He took away, like what we say, like a daughter, a sister, a teacher, and just a person in general. Yeah. Colleen did not deserve that.
We want to share a quote from her family, and I quote, "We are devastated and heartbroken by the details of the horrific circumstances surrounding the death of our beautiful daughter and sister, Colleen." End quote. And I feel like we do like to include these quotes because we like to remind our listeners that it's not just Colleen, it's also the people around her. And we always want to include that in all our episodes. It does affect everyone around the person.
Yeah. And this is real life. You know, like someone is now living with the loss of Colleen. Y la familia de Colleen did end up suing the Danvers school district porque dicen que la security system de la escuela was not the best.
I mean, yeah, I feel like a lot happened that afternoon and no one was there. No one was really there to help.
Keeping an eye out.
I feel like that's actually a pretty good point, you know, because there are teachers who stay behind and help students. So there has to be some type of like more people, maybe a security, maybe something.
Or just like, well, I mean, I guess maybe like her murder was very quick, but like they didn't hear anything.
Yeah.
Like no screams, no nothing. And after like hearing everything about the case, I just can't help but think like no one saw that young student with the recycling bin. Like, I don't know. As a teacher, whether it's after school or not, like, aren't you going to want to ask? Like, why do you have that?
That's true.
Like, that to me, I couldn't see past that.
Yeah, it's like you have to, like, if you run into someone else, they're going to ask, like, oh, where are you going with the bin?
Exactly. And, like, you know, rolling a bin, it makes sound.
Yeah.
So someone had to have seen that.
Yeah.
And I get it. Like, no vas a pensar lo peor, but you're also not going to ask a student. I don't know.
All in all, Colleen did not deserve this. Y ella tiene el derecho de sentirse segura en su propio trabajo. All educators should.
100% agree.
Yes. And it's really unfortunate what happened to Colleen. I am glad that, you know, Phillips is behind bars and paying for what he did.
Yeah, Phillips is still doing time. He did try to appeal his sentence, but there was never really any updates on that. And so because of that, we kind of just want to say that it's safe to say that it got rejected, like his appealment. So yeah, that's all the updates we have now for Philip. And yeah, that's all really that we have for Colleen's case. It was truly a very sad and heartbreaking case. I feel like, ¿quién se lo iba a poder imaginar? So yeah, so thank you all so much for listening. And, you know, again, like we said, thank you all to everyone who's been listening for a while. And if you're new here, thank you for giving us an opportunity and for helping our community grow. And we will see you all next week.